Okay, here we go. Today is the 125th Security Thought Leadership webinar. And the idea of thought leadership is that we critique today in that we may have a better type of security tomorrow. Indeed, in the world of scholarship, there is this view you can't possibly improve what you're doing unless you open it to scrutiny, to examination, to thinking from outside the box. And the topic today is one that in different ways we've examined around the edges. It's thinking again about security training, but this time to ask this question: is there too much emphasis on the security officer guard level and not enough on the manager director level? In other words, can we really have an engaged and skilled and good security sector if all we focus on is, in regulatory regimes at least, is the frontline operative? Well, once again today, I've got three panelists who will be examining this from different directions. Each of them are quite well known in their area, two from Canada and one from Ecuador. In a minute, I will, as usual, be inviting them in to introduce themselves. And once they've done that, I will invite each of them to make their opening statement. 3 minutes when they get to say what they want to about this topic. And once they've done that, we'll invite you, the audience, to engage with us. So please use the question and answer button at the bottom of your screen to ask your question. If you can get it in early, I promise you I'll endeavour to incorporate it into the ensuing discussion. So without further ado then, let's meet our panelists. And first of all, let's go to Dennis. Dennis, can you introduce yourself, please?
Thank you very much, Martin. Good day, colleagues, wherever you might be around our world. For those of you who don't know me, I've been in the security industry for over 40 years as a security officer, police officer, private investigator, security consultant, business owner, project manager, student learner, educator, professional development advisor, and now I'm an online learning junkie. I'm looking forward to sharing my views with today's subject and to engage with my colleagues here in the panel and you out there on Zoom. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you very much indeed, Dennis. And from Canada all the way down to Ecuador in South America. And Kevin, please introduce yourself.
Well, good morning. At the time, as you said, I'm based in South America. So again, good morning, everyone. My name is Kevin Palacios. I've been in the security industry for over 25 years now. Also in different positions as a security manager, a contractor. I've been also an educator, working in investigations, executive protection. Well, I hold all of IFPO certifications and all of ASIS international professional certifications. Dedicated a great portion of my professional and academic career to the study of security officers' competency. I'm a big advocate of training for security officers. Currently, I'm the vice chair of the board in the International Foundation for Protection Officers and responsible for the development of IFPO's activities in Spanish language. My view of the industry is that this is indeed a big pyramid, yeah, and the numbers are at the bottom, the operative level. So yes, indeed, I think this is a very interesting topic today about how there is, I believe, still more need to have more training, even so, on the operative side of security. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Kevin. I didn't know about you had those qualifications. And finally, let's go back to Canada and meet Glen. Glen, can you introduce yourself, please?
Good morning, everyone. I appreciate you giving up your valuable time either this morning, this afternoon, this evening. So I'm Glen Kitteringham. I've been working in the security industry since 1990. So I think I put some into my 31st year. I worked as a loss prevention officer, as a security guard, a uniformed security guard, a supervisor, manager, director. I've been consulting for the last 15 plus years. Big believer in adult learning and education and in the professionalization of the security industry. I've sat on a number of committees and councils and groups and organizations, and I'm a big believer, which we're going to talk about in the next 45 minutes. So thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Glenn. And Glenn, you put the idea to me for it. So thank you very much indeed for that. So I'll tell you what we're going to do. Without further ado, as you know, the plan is that we invite our panelists to make an opening statement, 3 minutes, where they can say what they like about this topic. So let's go first to Dennis. Dennis, your opening statement, please.
Thanks again, Martin. So why is it that around the world, regulators have such a priority focus on security officers and guards and not on managers and directors? Well, I think it's because the public's pressured regulators to focus on that person that's the visible face of security and investigation, that being the uniformed officers, along with the disguised loss prevention officers and private investigators. Incidents occurred which caught the public's attention and concerned them enough to pressure lawmakers. Why not the managers? They're the unseen parties, the puppet masters, although in control, not in the forefront. But still, does that mean we should be ignoring them? Should we be regulating them in some fashion? And what would that even look like? Attempts have been made in the past by some lawmakers, but it can be a very complicated world when it comes to regulating. So do security management leaders get enough training as it is? I'd challenge that statement, supported by numerous comments from industry colleagues who observe how many in security management roles lack business and organizational knowledge, skills, and experience to be able to effectively work with their senior executives in their organization. There's a demonstrated need for a better understanding of business principles, organizational behavior, C-suite dynamics. If a security manager, director, vice president is to function optimally in most organizations today. I'll turn it back to you.
Yeah, thank you. Some good thoughts there, Dennis, and we'll come back to you on those for certain. Okay, let's go down to Ecuador then and invite Kevin. Your opening statement, please, Kevin.
Thanks. So, yeah, in a world of globalized risks, criminals evolve and specialize. They are great at networking, at sharing, and adopting best practices almost immediately. So when we see it from the criminal side, there is a career, there is an organized competency-based hierarchy. Literally, if somebody dares to skip one of these steps in this career hierarchy and commits a disruptive act at a level he has not already achieved, they simply get caught. Yeah. On the other hand, what I found is that, yes, indeed, there is a big need of training at all levels in the security industry. But somehow many security professionals, they see their professional development as something very static. Yeah, I find a lot of contempt on just keeping with their base competencies. Sometimes it's hard for some security managers to leave behind the idea of what they taught, what they were taught in their previous careers, either in police or military. And as well, in many cases, I see if I will say that a security professional, to make an analogy, is a building, yeah. Sometimes I find many people eager to start building their career right from the top. Yeah. So if you give people a chance, they will go straight to build a penthouse. They will go straight to looking for a PhD without even having a lesser degree. That's basically a problem I have found in many different security industry associations, in many different with many different security professionals. So indeed, I believe the security training should be more organized in a sense that everyone should be able to complete their basic competency in order to move up into the ladder. Yeah. So that will be it for now. Thanks.
Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate the points. Thank you very much indeed. To say to audience, if you'd like to get your questions in early. Please use the question and answer button at the bottom of your screen. Get your question in, and I will endeavour to incorporate it in the ensuing discussion. So thank you very much indeed. Then let's go now to Glen. And Glen, can we have your opening statement, please?
Yeah, so I'm going to echo somewhat some of Dennis's sentiments. I think we're on the same page. So there's been calls for security officer for training for 50 years. I mean, since at least the early 1970s. And there are obviously, we know there are more and more jurisdictions introducing mandatory licensing training of officers. And this is probably due to the fact that uniformed security personnel are the visible face of the entire security industry, despite the fact that there are several components, including investigations, consulting, engineering and design, installation, cash and transit, cybersecurity, and importantly, obviously, the topic we're talking about today is security management. So as a visible face, uniformed personnel are more likely to be subject to scrutiny by the public, by the media, by politicians, and by law enforcement. And again, I mean, the reason we're here to talk about this is no one is calling for that mandatory training for security managers and directors. So regarding the term that gets bandied about a lot, which is professional, there actually has to be at least four criteria that need to be met in order for somebody to be considered a true professional. First of all, there has to be a unique body of knowledge of which the security industry has. Second, people must prove to their peers through formal and the public through formal education that they are qualified. Third, and this qualification leads to the third point, which is that there must be testing conducted for the individual to prove that they are indeed qualified. And finally, fourth, that the industry itself must self-manage. And that means that licensing and the right to work is controlled internally by the organization. So we certainly don't meet this criteria. We have a body of knowledge, and that's pretty much it. So this leads me to my next point, which is that, either you fundamentally believe in training and education is for the entire group, or it's not. And if you think it's for the entire group, of which I firmly believe, then everybody should receive training. And if you are one of that group that thinks training is optional, or for other people, then as far as I'm concerned, that person is holding the industry back. And I truly find it bizarre that there's many jurisdictions require frontline staff to obtain training to legally work while their bosses don't have to prove anything and are not equally required to provide proof of expertise. And given how complex the requirements are to successfully manage a security program, whether it's for a single site or globally, education is an absolute must, and security alone is not enough. And for those who take on a senior position to decide that they will learn on the job, they're shortchanging their employer, they're shortchanging the security department, and also, I think it's highly unethical to take a job that you're not qualified for. And I also think it's probably potentially illegal. I question how we can tolerate the lack of credentials in all these security leadership positions. They require knowledge in risk, physical security, insurance, law, accounting, business ethics, emergency management. They also require critical thinking skills and strong verbal and written communication skills, often which can only be obtained through formal education. And far too often, the people who go into these positions get them because they simply say they're an expert. I recognize that part of the problem lies with recruiters, many of whom are also ignorant of what it takes to be an actual expert. Human resources personnel are also part of the problem. They don't know much about security. They don't know much about its required qualifications. They write poor job descriptions. They don't bother vetting existing job descriptions. But then part of the problem lies with the people who come in from other sectors, flowing into senior positions with no industry qualifications whatsoever. Like, this has to stop. And to the person who refuses to obtain credentials, I got to ask, how can you possibly be a leader in any way when you won't do what's expected of others? And how can you set standards for others that you yourself won't follow? And I wonder how we as an industry can tolerate this. So finally, I'm calling on researchers to look into the complexity of the security manager, CSO, CISO positions and put the same attention into this area that they've been put on security officer training requirements. And for those who claim expertise without any training or education, regardless of background, and whether you're newly arrived or been in the industry for years, if you're the expert you claim to be, then obtaining credentials should be no problem whatsoever. So I challenge these people to prove me wrong. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Glen. Well, once again, audience, if you'd like to get your questions in using the question and answer button at the bottom of the screen, I'll come to you. Let me come back to you three, though, and suggest that you've all missed the point. And perhaps I'll come to you first, Dennis. And it goes something like this. The reason why you don't need training of security managers is because you've got in the security sector this problem that a lot of the modern thinking has been about how security has been integrated into the organization. Organizational knowledge is crucial. And therefore, the really key thing, if you want to be a leader, is not some security qualification. It's an MBA in business or business skills and management skills. And that's what really matters. You don't have to worry too much about security. And therein lies the catch. Dennis.
Well, I don't necessarily think that's the catch. I think you've hit a point there, though, Martin. And that is the criticism that comes from our own industry, our own security management professionals that say many of our colleagues just aren't qualified to be in the positions they are. They complain they're not getting the resources they ask for. And why? They don't know how to interact with senior management. They don't know how to deal with the C-suite. Many of them are intimidated. They're intimidated by technology. They're intimidated by the lack of knowledge on business acumen. So I think that has to be a part of the education process for security management professionals and leaders, is that if we're going to in some way expect better training from them, for them, then that's going to be a huge component of that education and training. Better business acumen, how to interact with senior executives, how to prepare that 3-minute elevator speech that you're going to give to the CEO when you both happen to be caught in the same elevator or lift at the while going up to the C-suite floor. So those are very important aspects.
Thank you, Dennis. And Kevin, hasn't Dennis just proven my point, though? The point is, Kevin, that security-specific knowledge is much less important at the higher levels than our general business management organizational skill sets, like business acumen, like being able to talk to the C-suite, like elevator pitches. And to go down the route of regulating security in some security type way is to miss the point about what's really required at the top level. Kevin.
Well, the security is a set of techniques, and of course has its own body of knowledge, as Glen accurately said. So if you first master the security body of knowledge, if you first master the standards, the norms, the trade of security, then you will start elevating, of course, in the ladder of organizational structure, and you will certainly require some additional skills, business acumen, business skills. So again, my point here, my view will be that somehow some people tend to try to skip all of this learning curve, and again, as having this building, as I mentioned before, the professional building of what a security professional is, they just skip all the way to the 4th or the 5th floor. Yeah. Again, missing what the fundamentals are, missing what the real trade of security is about, which is again on the basics, on the fundamentals. And if someone starts building themselves as a professional at the 5th or 6th floor, yeah, of course, there will be gaps, and that's also a big part of what the big problem in the image of security industry is right now. Many people believe that security is very simple. It's just a matter of common sense, when it's not. Yeah, there is indeed some things that need to be learned, and those are issues that are learned again at the basic level. Thanks.
Yeah, okay, I take the point there, Kevin, but let me come to you, Glen. So you're the one advocating then. And to be fair, you've done for a number of years now that there needs to be some sort of specific focus on security managers. Do you think that would be likely to gain traction within the industry given the fact that much of the modern security, the modern role of the security manager is much more than just security. It is this broader remit we're being invited to consider as important going forward. Glenn?
So two things. One, I definitely think things are much better than where they were when I first started in the industry in 1990. We've come a long way, and there's all kinds of educational programs. There's all kinds of designations. More and more security practitioners are getting those designations. So we are moving ahead without a doubt. But the other thing is that when let's say if we focus on security manager, okay, that means two things. One is that you should be, in my opinion, you should be a security expert. And two, you also be the term manager itself is, related to business. And you need to be able to manage the business of security, but you also need to interact with your peers. So I agree with you on one level that in that position, that you need to have business acumen for sure. But if we can just step outside of this for 1 second, this issue doesn't just affect, the security managers and security officers. The lack of training and education is across the entire industry. I'm going to pick on vendors here for a second. And a lot of most vendors are there to sell stuff, whether you need it or not. And it's my firm belief that as a security manager, if you are in charge of the security program, when the vendor is walking off into the sunset, counting their money, you have to fully understand what you just bought. And you need to know how it works, and more importantly, what it doesn't do. There's a lot of promises being made out there by vendors that their product is the latest and greatest. So you need to have a high degree of security expertise for sure, before I think you can start moving into more senior positions. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. It definitely does. Let me move on then, Dennis, and I'll come back to you. And from Sandy Davis, a question. Sandy, yourself an expert, as many people out there in the industry will know. And Sandy makes the point that is focused on how we move forward with this, Dennis, right? So how we bring about a situation in which we begin to think about the compulsory training or the mandatory training of security managers. Now, have you got any thoughts, Dennis, on what the route to that is? I mean, is it a doable proposition, and where do we begin to start? Dennis?
Absolutely. And there are some great examples out there that can be benchmarked. I'm going to direct some attention towards where Glen is based, and that's Calgary, and where I'm originally from in Edmonton is that the security professional or practitioners at the time in those areas said, we need more training. We need a more organized way to be able to gain the knowledge that our organizations are expecting us to have in a management role. And as a result, we worked in coordination with the administrators of 2 universities to strike up a certificate program. And this is going back in the 80s, and today still going strong at the University of Calgary, a program that can be delivered anywhere in the world that is quite popular, delivering those tools to not only aspiring but existing security management professionals on how to better operate. And those tools include the knowledge from a job analysis that's conducted from the industry on what subject should be taught in that particular program. So a program such as that take a person through 2 years worth of education and professional development have shown already that it also impacts the industry. Is that what we've seen in Calgary and Edmonton and in that region are job postings from human resource departments that actually specify that certificate as one of the job requirements. So you know what? I reach out to people should pick up that challenge from Dr. Kitteringham and get on board with, let's do more research and let's find out what we can do to help improve the industry in this regard. And not only that, organize in your own communities, much like Calgary and Edmonton had done, and work with your local educational institutions. Work with organizations like IFPO and ASIS and say to them, hey, you know what, we want more programs in the Wharton School of Business to be able to develop ourselves more effectively, more online learning, that sort of innovation.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Kevin, let me come to you. Kevin, talking about Ecuador if you want, or South America, whatever you're most familiar with, what's the barrier to having mandatory training of security managers? Why is it already not happening, and what would stop it happening going forward?
Well, I guess somehow many people tend to just do what is mandatory. Yeah. So yeah, it will be best if we have a mandatory training for supervisors, for managers. But then on the other side, there is a lot of lack of knowledge on what the security industry, what the security business is about. So the pool, which will be the actual request, the actual human resources departments or recruiters, which are wrongly stating at some point, for instance, that a former officers from the military will be an ideal security manager, or a former police officer will be a great security manager, and that's what is written in many job descriptions. Yeah, if you look for the ads in newspapers and so on, it basically states like that. So the requirement is to have a certain background in again military or police and nothing else. So as that is what is requested, yeah, people basically just tend to do only what is needed, yeah, only what is requested. I believe there is also a big need for actual education in several parts of the world, including especially Latin America, where I'm from, at all levels. So I would even suggest that we would need some security, safety embedded into the basic high school, yeah, or even university level education. So everyone has at least the basic knowledge for self-protection, and also to understand a bit more about what security is in general. That's it.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. It sounds obvious. It sounds all these things we do in early years, and we don't make that a subject matter. But all right, I mean, let me come to Glen. Glen, I want to come to a question from Al Robinette, and raised an interesting point about the return on investment for this, because one can say the reason why it doesn't happen is because no one's shown there is any real commercial value in doing it. So we can sit back and we can say, as onlookers to the scene, how important this is. We must be educated. We must have more qualifications. But you know what? Sometimes practice gets ahead of scholarship, and practice is making it work. And practice says we don't need it, because we're commercially savvy and we're commercially viable. And ultimately, Glen, if you really want to make this happen, you've got to have a commercial proposition, and it's simply lacking, isn't it?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I'd like to think I'm a prime example of somebody who's worked his way up through the ranks over the years. And, you know, as I said, I started working as a loss prevention officer, and I mean, I faced a lot of barriers. Probably the main barrier when I wanted to get ahead was I was told over and over and over that I was never going to get into a more senior position because I lacked law enforcement experience. And my response to that was, well, I can't repeat it right now, but I said no way. And so what I believed was that education trumps anything else. And I'd like to think that I'm in the position that I'm in right now because of my education. And so there's that. So if we're looking at a pure return on investment, there's many positions out there. And part of the reason why I think that the private sector keeps hiring law enforcement, military, intelligence retirees is because we as an industry are not producing enough of our own people to work their way up the ranks. And so I don't know if that really addresses the issue the way the way the gentleman asked that question, but I think there is a return on investment. And I also think we have a moral obligation to truly understand what the requirements of the job are and to get better at it. And as far as I'm concerned, yes, you can self-educate for sure, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I'm a big believer in self-education. And I guess another way of looking at self-education is experience. But to me, the formal credentials are, to me, should be absolutely mandatory as you're working your way up into these more senior positions.
Okay, fair enough. Dennis, let me come to you in a question from Simon Cham. Do you think managers themselves are the block here? Maybe because they themselves haven't got it and are doing fine, thank you very much. Maybe because once others become educated, it becomes a threat and undermines their position. Maybe it's the very people who are in charge who could make the most difference who are putting the block on this. Reasonable?
I think you're going to find that there's going to be some examples of that. I can't dispute that. Of course, there's going to be some people that are in existing positions that are the obstacles. I think we've all seen that. We know people that they wanted to maintain status quo because they've been there, done that. Nobody else is going to show them or teach them anything any different, or they're the expert in that field, and they're going to maintain that position. And in a lot of cases, that's exactly what their managers and their supervisors want from them as well. So, you know what? Until that particular organization evolves or that individual leaves, you're not going to see much change. But how do you impact those people? I don't have an answer for that one. But I think they're the minority out there.
Okay, Kevin, same question. Do you think that Simon Cham's question? Do you think that managers themselves are the block on progress? Yes or no?
Some will, for sure, be a block. I guess the way what you were asking, how to get out of this vicious circle, the way out will be to have a very complete and updated job analysis on what is needed for security officers, for supervisors, for security managers. Yeah, to have a serious research that will be again somehow as a milestone and can be shared, can be shown, yeah, to the public, can be shown to the academic world, and can be actually be a stepping stone into a big change into the industry. Yeah, so indeed you can only change things when you show results. Yeah, and if we as an industry organize and complete such research and show the result and show how some managers with a higher education, with better technical skills get better results, then the industry is going to evolve and change.
Okay, fair enough. Glen, question for you from Gordon Knight. I'll read you the question because I think it's a really good question about this. And it builds on what Kevin was just saying. Is the problem not related to the way career paths are managed? Are people being promoted beyond their skill levels? On the other side, could bringing in management from outside the industry mean a lack of security skills in the C-suite? So a few things in there, Glen. Your thought, you respond as you wish. Then I'm going to come to you with the same question, Dennis, so get ready. So Glen first.
Sure, absolutely. There has been historically a lack of career pathing. Interestingly, a friend of mine, Dr. Declan Garrett, when he did his doctoral thesis at the University of Portsmouth in 2016, his thesis was the lack of career pathing in the security industry. So without a doubt, there is that.
And what was his conclusion?
There is no career path, and that the people who basically make it have to figure it out on their own without a lot of outside advice. And so as a result, that's something that I've actually had a lot of interest in, and I do a lot of business training as well, leadership training. And one of the things that came out of a course that I was teaching last year was I was doing a lot of one-on-one work with mid-level managers, and every one of them either came right out consciously or unconsciously said, okay, this is all fine and I'm learning these leadership skills, but then what? Where do I go? What do I do with this? And so as a result, I've actually been working with a couple of other industry professionals, and I've been developing a career pathway guide. And I actually threw it up. I'm on version 10 right now, and I've thrown version 9 and 10 up on LinkedIn a couple of months ago. I had 10,000 hits. Like, there is a massive amount of interest out there. So yes, to answer that question, there has been a lack of career pathing, but I will also give full credit to ASIS and to a lesser extent to IFPO that they've started. Like, ASIS has been working on this issue since about 2014, and there are some fantastic documents out there about career development. And then IFPO has also been working on developing career pathing as well. And so there are the resources out there, but I will say that this is all relatively new, and it's only come about in the last 6 or 7 years.
Fair enough. Dennis,
I can't dispute
if you're
that.
not managing careers, Dennis, if you're not managing the people from the bottom up, don't be surprised. Don't forget about regulations. Start just managing the route to the top. Reasonable?
Yeah, I agree. I can't dispute that. Is that I think we've seen historically that there has been an issue because of the mentality of organizations to replace existing security managers with former law enforcement. And if your existing security officer staff that have even spent the time to educate themselves and bring themselves up to a level of competency to take over that position, they're overlooked because that's not exactly what management wants. But you know what? I think we're changing. I think it's getting better. I would like to see some more research in that regard. It's good to see there has been already some papers completed towards that. But you know, is that it can change. And once again, is that if the right kind of education and training, professional development occurs within that workforce, then you're going to see optimism towards moving up through the ranks into more of a management level within that organization. We're going to be able to, we're going to need to motivate those individuals and make it available for them to be able to obtain the necessary training, certification, and competencies needed for that role.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to move on. Kevin, question from John Reeves. Now, this is a good question, actually. Is it the case there are too many security management qualifications available now, with the risk of the whole issue just becoming a bit of a money spinner than a genuine commitment to enhancing performance? Kevin, too many qualifications.
Yes, indeed, there have been a few new certificates and new designations that are there up in the air. I believe, that any training is better than no training, for sure. But then the value of a certification is that a body of knowledge needs to be obtained, and that it needs to be peer reviewed. Yeah. So most of the certificates that I see around there do not comply with that basis. Yeah, I see a lot of courses which are just even in some cases online courses. You just take videos or Zoom classes, and then you get a certificate, and that should not be the case. A certification is a process where you get evaluated, yeah, and you comply with a specific framework. Yeah, so there are just very few certifications that are, in my personal view, worth the time and the money. Yeah.
For example, on a management level, what would you put? Give me an example.
If we will talk at the director's level or manager level, for sure, what ASIS offers, yeah, CPP, PSP for physical security, and PCI for investigations. And if you look at entry level management, I will definitely go for a CSSM on IFPO. And if we look for a guard supervisor level, I will go for a IFPO's CPO. Yeah. So those are indeed, in my view, the only ones that actually are anyway worth the time and the money spent. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you for being pinned down there. Okay, Glenn, question here from Leo Hutchinson. I'm going to read you the question because I think it's a really, really good one. I hear the term expert being used frequently here today. I would be interested in hearing comments from the panel on whether a security manager needs to be a security expert, or is it more relevant in their role to have a basic understanding of security principles and best practices with the ability to call upon security experts in their particular field? And my point is that there's more important things than just being a security expert and being a manager, and there are more important things. Glenn, security expert necessary for a security manager?
No. If we're talking about let's say a mid or a entry level managerial position, then no, being a generalist, in my opinion, is the way to go. You need to know, I don't know, a lot about a lot, or a little about a lot. Again, having that level of understanding of countermeasures effectiveness is really, really important. How to do a risk assessment, how this stuff all works technically, operationally. And so being a generalist, but I think as a person works their way up the ranks and let's say moves into a CSO position, then yeah, I think they need to be an expert. And an expert in a number of areas, not just security. They need to be an expert in communication. They need to be an expert in business. They need to be an expert in risk. They need, there needs to be a lot of expertise in a lot of different areas. I mean, security is hard. It really is. At least I've been in this industry for 31 years, and I'll tell you, the more I know about it, the more I feel like the less I know about it. And it's an awesome industry, but it's hard. You got to.
Yeah, I mean, it seems easy. It seems easy, but it's not. I mean, to do well, it's not. Dennis and Kevin, you've got 10 seconds each to answer Lee's question. Does a senior manager need to be a security expert? Dennis, very quickly, yes or no?
You know what? I was looking for a reason to challenge what Glenn was saying there, but I'm having a difficult time coming up with examples. I would have to agree with him. Is that I think that you surround yourself with specific expertise, is that you're a generalist, hence why the CPP is designed the way it is that's what's come out of the job analysis that's conducted every 5 years, that the expectation is you're a generalist.
Okay, and finally, Kevin, just 20 seconds, Kevin, final comment from you. Security expert, necessary or not?
Well, you need to be an expert in security and management in order to be a security manager. So you should be able to speak both languages very fluently. And yeah, it is important to have both sets of skills.
Panel, thank you so much for your engaging answers. Very, very good audience questions, actually. I really enjoyed those. And I like it when you put the panel on the spot, but didn't they do well, to be fair? So thank you very much indeed, audience, for your questions. Thank you very much indeed, panel, for your responses. And again, we'll be picking up on this. And don't forget, I'll be putting a copy of a blog about what they've been saying today on the website tomorrow. And also a copy of this recording will be available too. A couple of final comments, if I might, just before we go. Just to say that nominations for the Outstanding Security Performance Awards are open in the US and the Benelux and the Kenya, but they close soon. US on the 1st of July, come on. Benelux the 4th of July. And Kenya, the 9th of July. Germany, Norway, and Romania, you've got a bit of time, but why not do it now? And the Tackling Economic Crime Awards open in the UK. Don't forget, entries are open, but get your entries in as soon as you can. And also the Cyber OSPAs. the worldwide initiative to recognize outstanding performance in cybersecurity. All these associations globally are taking part. Perhaps we're missing some. Let us know. Look at these categories. They're open for entry now. Do get your entries in as soon as you can. And let you know as well that we'll be going through this all over again on Thursday, when the topic will be about fraud challenges in the public sector. In what way are these changing and how effective is the response? And just to alert you to a week from today, I've got 3 criminologists coming in to talk about crime rates during the pandemic. What's been going on and how can we begin to imagine what's going to happen next? They've got three of them with different views, actually, about crime rates, what's going on and what will happen. So hopefully you'll join us, if you will, on Thursday. And if not on Tuesday. Thank you once again to the panel. Thank you to you, the audience. Thank you in the background to Christine Brooks and Hannah Miller, who once again helped run the show behind the scenes. And from me to you, wherever you are in the world, until we meet again, stay safe.